Hello, and welcome to NEWIE's latest virtual Ask Me Anything. My name is Mary Usovicz, and I'll be tonight's or this late afternoon's moderator for this year's Ask Me Anything 2021. Tonight's discussion is going to be with our board members. We have three of them that are going to give you a different perspective on the energy environment world. Weezie Nuara, Vivian Kimball, and Cindy Gage. Today's Ask Me is a series of conversations that we have on the first Wednesday of every month. Not every month, 6 times a year. Our next one is in March, and it starts at 4 o'clock. On behalf of NEWIEE, I want to extend a very special thank you to our sponsors, Eversource, First Light, Mass CEC, and Robinson Cole, who make all these virtual events possible. During the conversation, please put your questions in the Q&A box on your screen. With this, basically, it's just a free-flowing conversation that we have, and it only works really well when we hear from our viewers as to what their questions they have for our board members. Each of our board members comes with a unique background that I think you'll find very interesting, and they will also be able to talk about how they got involved in NEWIEE. We also have an exciting program coming up, and I'm very excited about this one. On February 18th from 3:30 to 5, it's Shalana Baker's new book that's out on revolutionary power. I strongly recommend that you get involved and register for this as soon as possible. And without further ado, I'd like to, and also upcoming Ask Me Anything, we have the chair of Pura coming on, Marissa. She's excited to do a one-on-one with me regarding what's going to be happening in Connecticut on the new year with the energy and environment for the state of Connecticut. So please register for that as well. So I would like to invite the guests to come on and unmute yourself. Hello, Cindy. Hello, Vivian. Hello, Weezie. How are you? As my fellow board members, this is exciting. We're going in our 13th year, 2021. So I am thrilled to have this opportunity to do a one-on-one with you guys and get your input. Certainly, a lot has happened in the past year, which we'll touch on. And we also want to keep thinking positive and looking forward as to what you see going on in the future. Let's talk about 13 years. And when I do this, I think they asked me to do this one because I think I'm like the oldest board member, not in age, but just that I was around 13 years ago when we got started. And I do know all three of you were not. So it's interesting. I'd like to kind of probe a little bit about how you got involved in NEWIEE and then basically how it has kind of affected your personal life in each of your positions that you have. So I'm going to start with our new president, who's Weezie, and Weezie Nuara, who works for Dominion Energy. So Weezie, when did you get involved in NEWIEE and why did you get involved in NEWIEE? And now you're our president.
Thanks, Mary. Great question. And, you know, it started all the way back in law school when I was a legal intern for Dominion Energy. So I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia, which is where Dominion is headquartered. That's how I became familiar with the company. And so during law school, I interned with Dominion as an environmental law intern. After law school, I stayed on board with Dominion as a full-time attorney for about 3.5 years. And it was during that time when I was working as an attorney for Dominion doing environmental law work, and I met Beth Barton. And Beth is a prior president of NEWIEE. And she said, you know, you got to get involved in this organization. It's called New England Women in Energy and the Environment. It's absolutely fabulous. You know, we're going to have an event at Foley Hoag, you know, in a couple weeks, and Cheryl LaFleur is going to be there, and you've got to come and listen to her speak. She's absolutely fabulous. And I thought, gosh, you know, what are FERC commissioners and what do they even do? And, you know, I was in the environmental law world, so I really wasn't involved in energy at that point. So I went to that event and obviously walked away just, blown away by Cheryl LaFleur and just started falling in love with NEWIEE and the work they were doing. And then, when I moved over to ISO New England in 2012, I got more and more involved in NEWIEE and started doing some programming because ISO New England is headquartered out in Holyoke, Massachusetts, doing some programming out in Western Mass and down into Connecticut. And then we started doing more programming. We launched this local chapter out in that area of the region, and then Beth invited me to join the board, and the rest is
history.
The rest is history. Now I'm back with Dominion Energy after just an incredible experience at ISO New England. Now I'm doing state policy work for the region, and so that's how I stumbled upon NEWIEE.
So you stumbled upon NEWIEE, and you didn't find that there was any walls or roadblocks, or it was who you knew or anything. It was kind of like, here's the reins, run with it. Would that be fair to say?
That's fair to say. I was immediately thrown into work on the membership committee, asked to, restructure the whole, membership framework, which worked well, and then moved over to programming chair, vice president, and now president. So it's happened very quickly, and I'll say I don't look back. So I'm thrilled to be a part of the organization.
And we're thrilled to have you. And like I want our viewers to understand that, this is an organization where you can really get involved. And I want to see if that's the case, because we have another person with us tonight, Cindy Gage, who was on and off. She was involved, and then she kind of took a hiatus, and then she came back and was really involved. Cindy, can you give us your same impressions as to how you feel in a little bit of different ways? Like, you've given so much to NEWIEE, because you did our whole revamping of our logo and everything. But why NEWIEE? Why did you find that this was the organization you wanted basically to give us access to your wonderful staff at C+D?
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, so as you noted, I was sort of in and out with NEWIEE. I worked in, about 20 years ago, I started working on the EPA's Energy Star program. And from there, as a marketing consultant. And then from there, started working more with local utilities in marketing for energy efficiency. And I would very often find myself one of very few women in the room. And that was curious to me. And so when one of my colleagues mentioned NEWIEE to me, and it being a totally woman-led organization, I found that a really interesting opportunity to engage with other women in our field. And so, I was in and out a little bit over the years. And then 5 years ago, I opened the Boston office for C+C. And, we're a social good marketing firm, and the vast majority of our business is in energy efficiency, clean energy, and sustainability. So that was 2015. And in my first year at NEWIEE, after the last election, Gina McCarthy was our keynote speaker at the gala. And a lot of us were feeling somewhat disheartened at the time, given some of the moves being made that felt very dismantling to the work we'd spent our careers doing. And Gina took the stage and she said, the clean energy, they will not derail us. The clean energy train has left the station, get on it. And that to me was the point at which I said, I need to take more action. Yes, my career's in clean energy, but I need to take more action and join other like-minded people to keep things moving forward. And that's how I decided to get more involved with NEWIEE and joined the board and took on the marketing tasks with my colleague, Jennifer McNeil, who's our ace marketing consultant. And it's been a fantastic ride and hugely rewarding.
Well, we're very fortunate to have you and have you volunteer so much of your time and effort to make NEWIEE, basically, I would say for the region, a household name. When I started 13 years ago, I said NEWIEE and people go, what is that? I say NEWIEE now and people go, oh yeah, I love your events. So we have come a long way. Let me turn to Vivian, one of our newer board members. And I have to say, Vivian, probably younger than us. So I would love you to talk about how you got involved and then basically encourage how you would encourage some of your colleagues to get involved, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I think my first, I actually don't remember whether it was an annual meeting, fall fete, or a gala was my first event, but whichever one it was, apparently I was hooked because I kept coming, kept coming back. And at one point, I think there was there must have been, it was on the email list, and I think there was a call sent out for help with the program for the next gala. And I said, ooh, my original background before I got into environmental consulting is graphic design. I could totally help with that. And this is like the merging of two interests. So I sent an email and I said, hey, I'm interested in helping. And, you know, like you and NEWIEE were saying, there's zero barriers. Like everybody is super welcoming, happy to have the help. Pulled me right into the process, and it's been rolling on ever since. I recently started helping with the fall fete planning, and then I joined the board. So it's very like once you get involved, it's very easy to just keep going and get more and more involved, and it's rewarding.
Well, that's great, because I'd like to talk about how you guys all three of you see us getting more involved in the year 2021. Every state seems to have been doing something regarding the climate change and clean energy and dealing with just the energy and the environment issues. I'm going to ask you, what do you see, if you could just summarize what you would love to see get done this year for overall energy environment issue, and then how could NEWIEE play a role in that? So I'm going to start with Cindy. Cindy, what do you see as one of the first things you would love to see us, you know, if you had to pick an issue, what would you like to see that, and how could NEWIEE help?
So one of the key issues for me and for us as an organization is increasing diversity. You know, as I said, when I started, I'll never forget going to one of my first utility collaborative meetings, and I think the only woman in the room was Laura McNaughton from National Grid, and you know, we were few and far between, and that can be really daunting. So when I look around the rooms now, I still see an issue of diversity, not as much in gender, but certainly in race and ethnicity. And so I feel like one of the key issues that we need to do is be more inclusive and more diverse in our workforce, in our policymakers, in our leadership, and across the clean energy spectrum, as well as within NEWIEE. And as you know, that's a key initiative for us this year that Carter's leading.
Yeah, and what do you see, how can NEWIEE do that? Can you give me like very short what you see what NEWIEE could do?
You know, we're doing things to increase visibility of women of color in our fields, events like we have coming up with Shalonda Baker, which are going to be phenomenal, or our Women Shaping the Agenda event, which was record attendance this summer when we had a fantastic diverse panel discussing issues of equity and environmental justice. And the fact that so many people are subscribing and joining us for those kinds of events tells me there's a broader appetite, that there's a really broad awareness of the imbalance, and that there are a lot of people out there that are working to take action. So I think the more programming that we do, I think the more promotion that we do of these issues and talking about these issues, and certainly partnerships with organizations like AIB that can help us bring new initiatives to market, like some of those that we're working on as a board right now will be key to taking action.
That's awesome. Weezie, let me ask you, let's shift a little to policy, the energy environment world policy, because that's what you do every day at Dominion. What do you see as one of the key policy in the energy environmental sector to build on what Cindy talked about? So, I agree with Cindy, that is a key thing that the NEWIEE board is taking on. But let's shift a little to policy. What could be a policy issue, and how could NEWIEE get involved in that?
Well, I'd say we've already gotten involved. I think one of the biggest policy issues right now is, conducting scenario analysis, pathway analyses for decarbonization. not only of the electric sector, but all sectors of the economy, heating, transportation. So in December, we actually just hosted an event in partnership with the Connecticut Power and Energy Society, featuring 4 rock stars, you know, policymakers around the region. So Commissioner Katie Dykes, you know, we had Carrie Gill from the Office of Energy Resources, Dr. Carrie Gill from the Office of Energy Resources. We had Hannah Pingree from Maine. And then of course we had the founder of NEWIEE, Judy Chang, who's Undersecretary of Energy for the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. And they were all talking about the work that their states are doing on essentially studying pathways to meet their decarbonization goals, whether it's for the electric sector specifically or for the entire economy. I think that's one of the biggest issues before us right now. NEWIE's already showcasing the women involved in those conversations, leading those conversations, and I think we should continue to play a role so that we have we have a real say in where the states are going. These analyses, they're going to drive decision making for years to come. So I think that as women, let's be a part of that conversation. We already have some fantastic women who are leading those conversations from a policy standpoint in the various agencies. So let's make sure our organization is plugged in and all of our members feel like they have access to these high-powered women in leadership roles, but also just a community where we can discuss the analysis, discuss the results and findings, and come together on solutions going forward.
Well, that's great. So Vivian, one of the other things we found through all of our surveys and work and everything is that people look to NEWIEE for networking, which you just said yourself. You got hooked. You came to an event, you got hooked. How can we keep on keeping networking alive in NEWIEE in this world of virtual? If you could touch on that, and also just expand on other new networking opportunities.
Sure, I can try. It is definitely a challenge. And I think a lot of, that's something a lot of organizations like us are struggling with, the whole networking piece. But we did hear loud and clear from our member surveys that's one of the most valuable things about NEWIEE, is being able to meet other women who are working in the same space. And I think it's important that it's women in particular, because it can be hard to find women in the industry, as we've talked about, but also more women who are more in leadership positions, and NEWIEE provides a great way to access that group of people. And I think there have been, the events that we've done so far have done a really good job of providing sort of a forum for people to kind of meet. The breakout rooms that we did for the Fall Fete, I felt worked really, really well for giving people a chance to talk with a smaller group and not, a 50-person group where it's hard to get a word in edgewise. So I think a lot of those kinds of opportunities, unfortunately, is what we're restricted to right now. But certainly, hopefully, as vaccine gets rolled out, and hopefully we'll be able to open up to more, and as weather gets better, maybe we can do some distanced outside activities or something like that as well.
So do you find NEWIEE, let me ask a question on networking. When we were in person, did you find that NEWIEE provided you an opportunity to network with women that you felt that you wouldn't have had that opportunity if it wasn't NEWIEE? Definitely.
I think one of the interesting things too about the NEWIEE, both the membership and just people who may attend but aren't necessarily members yet, is that it's a very broad group of people from, we all have a finger in energy and or environment, but they're very different aspects of it. And so there are definitely a lot of folks that I never would have met just, going about my day-to-day job. And networking events as a networking event in person can be overwhelming, but I have found that, and this, may vary from everybody's experience, may vary, but I had found that when I sort of stepped up to a group of people at an event, that they were very welcoming and invited me into the conversation. So I hope that has also been the case for others.
Well, yeah, what I'd like to do is we're going to expand on that, but I do have some questions coming out to turn to them. So we have one question that came from Sarah Adams, who says, I got involved in NEWIEE because I had an incredible boss who brought me to Western New England Programming Committee meeting, and then Weezie, and I thank her, really encouraged me to stay plugged in. How do you commend that we are mentors recognizing rising professional skills and energy and help them grow in the field? Or how can mentees make their skills and interests known most effectively? So Weezie, NEWIEE has an incredible mentor program that Muriel, who has since retired. Can you talk a little bit about our mentoring program? And then Cindy or Vivian, you can add something. But I actually was a mentor, so I also will share my experience. So go right ahead.
Sure. So as you mentioned, Muriel Robinette, she's the one who really spearheaded the mentorship program at NEWIEE, and she did a phenomenal job. We did several series of mentor-mentee matchups, and they were just hugely successful. In fact, we had too many mentees to even match up with a mentor. So just a ton of interest. Jackie Ashmore, our outgoing president, is going to be leading that effort now, and she'll do a phenomenal job. We've also been doing some mentorship circles. So maybe you're not so comfortable with a one-on-one relationship. Maybe you'd like to be with a group of people kind of sharing your experiences and advice. And one of our chapters did this particularly well, the New Hampshire chapter. They were doing some mentorship circle events, and those are things that we hope to pick back up when we return to in-person events, this summer or fall. Those opportunities hopefully can arise through the local chapters, where it's, easier to meet with a smaller group and talk about your own personal experiences and ask questions of folks who are more experienced in the field. But I can assure you, we will launch the mentorship program, the one-on-one mentor-mentee type program under Jackie's leadership this year. So definitely stay tuned on that.
I encourage anyone to do it. I was a mentored woman. I actually worked with her and actually got her a brand new job, which was a job that she had wanted through my networking contacts. Invited her to a bunch of meetings that I had extra tickets, and she came, and it was a great experience, and she's very happy now. And I can't tell you how rewarding it is. So Cindy, Vivian, do you either have any experience with the mentoring program? And Weezie's right, Muriel needs a big shout out, and I know they're big shoes to fill, but I'm confident Jackie can do it. So would you like to, did you have any experience with the mentoring program, Cindy?
No, but actually I've signed up to be a mentor this year with Jackie.
Yay!
February, in our February newsletter, we'll be featuring some news from Jackie on the mentor program. So stay tuned for that.
Thank you. And Vivian, any experience? Or
I actually was matched, as I think I signed up a few rounds ago to be in either position. And I was actually matched with a mentee who had sort of stumbled into energy, which I think a lot of us have. And she was trying to figure out, like, how do I go from what I was doing to this new thing that I've suddenly discovered I'm interested in? And that was a really rewarding process to see her go through, looking at internship opportunities and trying to work through her resume and that kind of stuff. And she did ultimately get an internship at one of the places that she was applying at.
And Weezie, it's correct. There's no cost to doing this, right? This is totally, everybody just signs up, volunteers. I know there'll be more in the newsletter, but we got people here and it's a marketing opportunity. Let's tell people this is one of the benefits of being a NEWIEE member, right?
That's right. So it is a benefit of being a NEWIEE member. So we do encourage you to sign up to be a NEWIEE member, either through an individual membership or membership through your organization, and that will grant you access to the mentorship program. So that's one of the reasons many organizations join. Once they learned about our mentorship program, they said, okay, I need to sign up my organization so that I can give some of our younger employees an opportunity to take advantage of the mentorship program.
And we're talking about mentors, and Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have some very senior women in energy and environment. We have VPs, we have CEOs who are members. So this is an opportunity for you to get that access from a diversified groups and organizations.
Mhm.
In the newsletter, if you can give us a sneak preview, could you tell us how many companies and stuff like that that are involved in the mentoring program, and or any information at all, so we know what the sneak stories coming out in the February newsletter?
I can't tell a thing. My lips are sealed.
Okay,
Feel
that's
some-
good.
some,
See, there you
interesting.
go.
some
It's
interesting
worthwhile to get the newsletter. Well, let's go to we have a couple more questions come in here for you guys. Somewhat deviating from the membership question, how can younger members get involved in the mentorship this year? So we have another mentorship. And how do we sign up for mentors? There's a lot of questions here on the mentoring program. Can you just give us a little bit more? That's where I was going with those questions, but I know it's going to be in the newsletter. But any of you want to just give a quick how people can do it right now so they don't have to wait for the February newsletter?
Well, I imagine it'll be in Jackie's update in February, and it'll all be through the NEWIEE website. So we have a landing page for all of that, and I just encourage you to make sure you keep eyes on your email and on that newsletter. Follow the instructions, and Jackie she will not lead you astray. You will be able to get signed up, and then hopefully the matchups are executed pretty quickly, and you'll be able to be on your way with a mentor.
And there's no age restriction, right?
Oh,
I mean,
no.
Oh, no,
and
no.
I love Vivian's example, because you could sign up for either being a mentor or a mentee, so
Right.
you can either aspects. So it's great, because we must have doing something right, because those were 3 questions on mentoring and being matched with a mentor and everything. So all those questions that came in on the mentorship program, trust us, it'll be in the February newsletter, and our newsletter is newie.org, so to our website, so you can do that.
And I
Let's
just
yeah.
throw out there one other way. Of course, this is when we return to in-person events again, but we do have some very active local chapters. I think I saw Shauna Beeland on. She is the lead for the Rhode Island chapter. She's with the Office of Energy Resources down there in Rhode Island, and has done a fantastic job getting younger women involved. So the last event that she pulled together, I think there were probably 8 to 10 University of Rhode Island energy fellows there. And, they were all so eager and so excited to be a part of this organization. Ooh, what's NEWIEE? And then they learned about our gala, and they attended our gala through some of the tickets that were donated by organizations that, wanted to make them available to young professionals. So, you can come in so many different ways, whether it's the mentorship program or whether it's through a local chapter, and then, a window into some of our bigger signature events. So, I appreciate all the efforts around the region, particularly down in the Rhode Island area. Shauna, you've done an incredible job raising awareness about NEWIEE, just generally speaking, down in Rhode Island, and just bringing more people into the fold.
Well, and you took away, I was just going to turn to the local chapters, because that is a feature of NEWIEE. And I'm going to ask, I, of course, started here in the Massachusetts, the original NEWIEE. Vivian, did you come in through another chapter? Like, we do have one in New Hampshire. We do have one in Connecticut.
It was Massachusetts as well.
It was Massachusetts and Cindy. So, but we do, just because we have some more questions coming in, we do have local chapters. When we didn't have COVID, they were very active. They had special events. I actually went to the one up in Maine. It was a lot of fun. It was in a brewery. So they're always cool.
We love breweries.
We love breweries. They're cool events. So there's a little fun with networking with a little bit of a serious thing. I know I didn't get to go on it, but I think that the Western one had a nice lunch, chocolates, right? Or was that New Hampshire that they went to?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. So you see, these are the things: chocolates, beer, wine. I mean,
we got it all.
We got it all. So let's turn to another question that someone asked about is a little bit about how to get positive feedback to young women without taking it as negative criticism. So I'm going to turn to Vivian and go around and ask if you're managing a group of people, or if you have had a manager that's done this well, could you talk about how this can happen? So I'm a young professional. I want to learn. I'm new. I'm not experienced. And how can we do this so that people can learn instead of feeling, criticized?
Yeah, and that takes work on both sides, right?
Yes, it does.
Harvard Business Review, actually, their podcast, Women at Work, had a really good episode about feedback. I don't remember if the whole episode was about feedback, but they definitely touched on it. And the fact that women actually tend to not get a lot of constructive feedback. There's like a fear that we'll start crying or something, we'll freak out, we'll take it personally. And so we tend to get very vague, like, good job, which is, I guess, nice, but not very helpful.
Or is it sincere too? Is it just good job because they don't want you to cry?
Right. And so there needs to be an effort on the manager's part, whether you're male or female, to make a conscious effort to give specific feedback. And that's, I mean, for anybody, that applies to male reports as well, to give really specific feedback. And it can be helpful to sort of frame it and actually from an employee's perspective too, you can kind of ask for it this way of, can you give me some examples of things that I did really well that you would like me to do more of? And the flip side is, are there things that, I maybe didn't handle so well, and could you help me figure out a way that could have gone better that I could work on next time? So I think specificity is really important.
I think that's really important. And Cindy, I'm going to ask it a little bit differently because I love what Vivian said, but how do I'm like young professional. I don't know this issues that well. How do I build up confidence enough? Because all I'm getting is a lot of negative feedback. How do I build up my confidence? Is there something I can do to help me feel more comfortable in the shoes that I'm wearing now?
I think the number one thing is look for a mentor. Look for a mentor. And, we've hit it a couple of times here, but I think one of the wonderful things about NEWIEE is we are a community of business people who want to help other women move forward in their careers. So I think looking for a mentor who can help advise you, that you can bounce things off of, that, for example, if you have a presentation to give and you want to pitch it to somebody to get some good feedback and constructive criticism, like find those opportunities, whether it's a coffee with someone, whether it's a work sort of situation where you're sharing a piece of work, or a presentation to get that kind of feedback. Look for someone whose work you respect and admire and that you feel that you can trust, and put yourself out there. You're only going to get better if you put yourself out there and look for the opportunity to get coaching to improve.
And I could ask you differently, Weezie, a little bit different, because I love what Cindy talked about, getting a mentor, and I love Vivian talking about that positive, constructive feedback. But one of the things is, how do I get confident enough to get promoted or to move to a different job, especially if the atmosphere is not positive and I lack mentoring? I mean, you've had some very key roles that you gave us when you did the opening discussion. What do you think is the number one thing that you would like to convey to people about how you can promote yourself and move up in your job?
Really, it is just gaining knowledge and expertise. At ISO New England, it was hands down the best training ground that I've ever had. And I just gobbled up all the information I could, and you start becoming a go-to for folks. So once people can trust you and you've spent a lot of time gathering information, gathering data, figuring out the best way to explain things. And this is a very technical field, energy and environment. They can be very technical. Once you hone those skills and you become a go-to for folks, that's invaluable. And you just kind of build your confidence that way. So it's just, it's hard work on your part, obviously, and we're all willing to put in the hard work. And once you kind of you know, gain that confidence over time, you have the confidence to apply for a, you know, state policy director job. And so you know, that's how I kind of moved along my career path. At ISO New England, it was just the best place in the world to learn about the energy industry. And I had some incredible folks around me who were willing to take the time to, you know, just explain all the ins and outs of the grid and the markets and of planning. And so it was just, I think, putting yourself in a position to learn and just gobbling up as much information as you possibly can, because once you become, and it's hard, this industry is tough. It's very technical, like I said. Once you become kind of a trusted source for information, that's when you start propelling yourself forward, at least in my view and in my experience. So I got to give a shout out to Allie and Audrey, who I see here from the ISO. Thanks for joining.
Well, and I do want to say that it's a safe place to come and ask questions at NEWIEE.
Yeah, NEWIEE is.
NEWIEE, reason 13 years ago we started NEWIEE was that, I just want to add what Weezie said, is 13 years ago, people did not know what a forward capacity market was, and they didn't know what a BTU was or a megawatt. And guys, if you ask that question, the eyes would roll with all the men in the room, like, you know, learn something, then come back. Especially if you went to a NEPOOL meeting. I think you had to know everything before you could even enter the room. So we really thought about NEWIEE was that it was going to be a safe place for women to come and ask questions where we won't roll our eyes. No question is stupid, and we're all here to help. And we don't put anybody down, and we just always put people up. We always build you up, and we don't put you down. And you can ask any of us. So I'd like to just put that out as a board member, and I know that all my fellow board members share this. Anytime you guys can reach out to any of us, and we'd be glad to help you weave through this, especially the young professionals that are watching. We do have another. Yeah, go ahead.
That was just hugely important for me. You know, this community, you know, I felt like I could reach out to someone at Eversource if I had a question, reach out to someone at the, you know, Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities if I had a question, because I had met them and gained a, you know, rapport with them and a relationship with them through this safe NEWIEE space. So I felt like I had gained, you know, just a rapport with someone, and now was able to ask a professional question, a question about my, you know, about my field, and felt safe in doing that. So it's just such a great community to have around you, and a resource. My goodness, I have gained so many relationships through my participation in NEWIEE that has helped me in my career, I will tell you. And it's just because of how welcoming this community is, and how many, I think Vivian mentioned this, how diverse it is as well. I mean, from agencies to consultants to law firms to marketing firms. I mean, you name it, we are the umbrella organization for energy and environment, and you can find and tap into anyone through this network.
And I want to point out that Cindy is a representative representing the marketing industry. Vivian is representing the consulting world, and Weezie is absolutely right. We have people that are admins all the way up to CEOs from all the different sectors in the energy environment space. And it is a very welcoming community. We do have a question here, which someone asked is, have you ever experienced competition with men at your workplace, which have stifled your opportunity? Have you dealt with this, and how do you help other women in the office? Well, I have to share one, my favorite one that we always talk about as women, is that you're at a conference table and you're with a whole diverse group of people, and they start off and you present an idea like, you know, oh, why don't we make the bottle blue or something that's specific and that direct, and everyone goes around and talks, and the last person to talk is a guy, and he goes, I have an idea, why don't we make the bottle blue? And you're like, didn't I just say that? And everyone goes, oh, Ralph's idea, let's go with the bottle blue. So I think we've all experienced, like, for some reason we want to know why, and maybe you guys can answer this question, why is it hard for women to be heard, I guess, since it seems that men have ability to get their points across, and they seem to get promoted, and recognized. So how do we build up the confidence, and how do we deal with men that put us down? So I'm going to start with Cindy and go around. So Cindy, would you like to give us some insight on that? Has that happened to you where you've been at one of those board meetings?
Oh, good Lord, yes. I think any of us above a certain age have could tell stories till the day is done. Look, I think in any place in your life, building confidence is important. Your personal life, your professional life, your educational life, building confidence is just key. So to success across all of those pillars. So I do look for mentors in varieties of places to that end. I think looking for the opportunity where you can stand out with a unique value and playing to your strengths is a good way to build confidence, because you can very squarely stand in your power and deliver value. Look for that opportunity in the workplace. I think it can be hard when you're the only female and get outshouted or mansplained. I mean, that's part of the game that we're playing, right, folks? Sorry to say. But if you really focus on your unique value and bring that to the table, and perhaps look to a coach or mentor or a friend to help you develop more confidence in that area, I think that's really key.
And Vivian, have you ever experienced that situation that the questioner has? Have you ever experienced competition with men in the workplace? And they just put you down so you don't get that opportunity? Because I think Cindy's very true. It's a lot about your own confidence, but and I love Cindy's thoughts, but have you ever experienced that, and how did you deal with it?
So that is actually kind of a blind spot for me. I hear a lot of people talking about like going into a meeting and sort of noticing like, oh shoot, I'm the only woman in the room. And I just, for some reason, like I go into the meeting and my mindset is we're here to get stuff done. I don't care who's in the room. Let's just do it.
That's good.
But I agree that confidence is a big piece of it. And some of that is just working it. Unfortunately, that's just hard work to work on yourself. And our brains were wired to notice the negative, to remember the negative, all the things we did wrong. And so it takes some mental rewiring to train yourself to, and sometimes this could even be like keep a list for yourself in a spreadsheet or in a Word document or something, of all of the things you've done right and all the things you've learned, so that you remember you're not just a whole list of failures. You've actually done a lot of good things.
That's a great idea.
It's a very good idea. And we had Sarah Burns, who's CEO of Central Maine Power, on one of these and asked me anything. And she said, and I'd love to share with you this and get your feedback. She said that men apply for a job even if they only have like one skill on the job description, one skill, which could be like 10% of the job. Women will not apply for the job unless they have like 90% of what the skill set is. So Weezie, I'm going to ask you this question. Are we hard on ourselves?
Oh gosh. I mean, we're so hard on ourselves. I'm my biggest critic. And, you know, I'm now keenly aware of this in my new role. You know, when I go into the office, it's at a power plant. So if you can imagine how male dominated just the industries are in general, imagine going into a nuclear power plant. You know, I am the only woman, you know, within 100 feet of me. And so I'm now actually more aware of this than I ever was. And have, you know, found myself feeling, I've doubted myself at times, you know, when I've gotten maybe, you know, microaggressions from, you know, various people, and you think, do they think I'm not capable of this job? Do they think, you know, I'm either too young or I'm a woman? And you start asking yourself these questions, which allows doubt to creep in. Can I do this job? And, you know, I got this little band that says, prove them wrong. You know, after this one moment at work, and I just said, you know, you earned this, and you got here because of what you know. You got here because of your expertise, and actually, you know way more than they do about, you know, policy matters and issues pertaining to government affairs and state affairs. So so own it and try your hardest to maintain that level of confidence, because the minute you start slipping and doubting yourself, you allow others to do the same. So I have to remind myself, and I do that, prove them wrong every day. So it's tough. I am my toughest critic, and that just makes me, that much more driven to do my best.
So that leads me to, we're coming, actually, we have like 15 minutes left, and I want to go through, I'm giving myself a little bit more time than I normally do, because we've asked Ask Me Anything this last question, and we've been collecting the responses of this question. One day we hope to compile them together and send it out to our members. But I'm going to start with Weezie and work my way around. Can you give me the best advice that anyone has ever given you? And the answer to that, whatever it is, did you follow through or did you ignore it? And what was the end result? So the best advice anyone has ever given you.
The best advice actually came from our friend Jim Smith. It was when I was with Dominion Energy, back in law school, back when I first, started out as an attorney. I was kind of, I was with Dominion Energy, but I knew that I needed to look elsewhere because Dominion was selling off its assets in New England. So as I was, on the hunt, I saw the ISO New England job appear, and it was in government affairs, and I was super nervous about making the shift from a legal profession to government affairs work. And Jim Smith said, he just said, go for it. You can always go back to law. You can always, go back to environmental law if that's what you want to do, but you have absolutely nothing to lose. Right now, that Dominion is moving out of Massachusetts, and you need to look elsewhere. So, what do you have to lose? Go for it. I applied at ISO. I went through the interview process, and I got the job. I'm now in the government affairs world. I'm no longer practicing law, and I'm thrilled about that. I'm not sad to leave, the environmental law world, as great as a foundation as it provided me, and informs all that I do on the energy side. I'm glad I took that leap of faith and that I went for it, because if I wanted to go back, I could have, and there were opportunities along the way, even that I said, hey, maybe I could jump on this and get back into some environmental law work. And I was just having so much fun doing what I was doing in the policy world that, I've never looked back. So go for it, take a leap of faith.
And you did, and you were successful. I'm going to turn to Cindy and ask her the same question. Cindy, the best advice you ever got, and did you listen to it, and what was the outcome?
I'm going to give you 3 tidbits from my dad. From Cindy. Number 1, know your worth. And, I remember going for a job at one point, and I thought, are they paying me fairly? If I were a man, would I be getting this salary? And he said to me, look, know what you're worth and ask for it, because if you don't, no one's going to hand it to you. And if they don't see the value, then you don't want to work there. So that was one thing. Know your worth. And just for reference, there's been a few questions related to this. We did a great professional development webinar back in the spring with Catherine McLean. And I've asked Jennifer McNeil, our marketing contractor, to share that in the chat in case
She does that. So that's great.
So that's great. I think one of the other things is related to know your worth is knowing your unique value. And I referenced this earlier. There are millions of people in the world, and we're all unique, and we all bring something different to the table. Value that in yourself, first and foremost, because when you know what you bring and you and you know your inherent value, it's much easier to bring it forward. I loved Vivian's idea about making the list of the things that you do right. My daughter makes a list of, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Remind yourself, because if you don't have yourself in your own corner, you can't assume you're going to have anybody else. And then this kind of, my last point is about competition. And one of the questions was, have you ever competed with a man for a job? Well, we compete with men, we compete with women, we compete for anything that we want in life. I choose not to think about those opportunities as I'm competing with you and I'm going to beat you. I think about it as I bring this unique value and no one else brings what I bring. No one else brings what you bring either, but I'm going to bring my best me to the game, and that's what I'm going to win.
That's great. Well, we appreciate that sharing. And Vivian, can you tell me the same thing? Best piece of advice you got? Did you follow it?
So it's sort of a weird one. I got a piece of advice from a cousin who is 12 years older than me. As I was heading into college. So it's sort of a backward piece of advice, and it'll make sense in a minute. But she told me to make sure I studied something that I really enjoyed, because she didn't, and now she was stuck. And I took that and was like, no, no, you're not stuck. And I kind of like, that stuck with me, that like, I can't let myself get to a point where I feel like I'm stuck and I can't change what I'm doing. And I think because that had been with me for several years, so I graduated from undergrad, I worked for 4 years designing children's books, and then for a bunch of reasons we were moving, but that whole time I had sort of been looking at environmental work and getting like reading more about environmental stuff. And when we moved, I was like, well, if I'm leaving my job anyway, might as well go back to school. Like, nobody says you can't go back and change majors and do a 180. And as long as I feel like I can do it, like, let's go for it. And here we are. So it was sort of a piece of advice that I didn't follow, but prompted deeper thought that helped me get where I am today.
Well, that's awesome. So we have one last question from our viewer that came in that I want to ask. I want to make sure we got all of that out so we can get on the record and not run out of time. Is that for the 2021 energy environment, what is your one big topic that you think that everyone's going to talk about, and it's going to be the thing? I'll start. I think it's going to be hydrogen. And I'm actually working on creating an H2 coalition that anyone can reach out to me to get more information. We'll start with Cindy. Cindy, what do you see is the number one energy environment issue for 2021 that everyone's going to be hearing about?
I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this new administration sets climate goals and how states and communities scramble to meet them.
Okay, Weezie?
Similar, I mentioned this earlier, it's the decarbonization pathways analysis that the states are undertaking. That's going to drive so much decision making going forward, at least on the energy side of the mix, but also very meaningful for meeting our environmental policy goals as well.
And Vivian, what do you see as the strongest issue that's going to be exciting and engaging in 2021?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is going to be related to the push toward decarbonization and clean energy. But as part of that too, I think there's going to be more, and our event with Shalonda is a piece of this, it's going to be more and more conversation about how equity plays a role in that. And I think I'm hoping too that this will be a big year for really getting people to think about that.
Okay, and then we're doing last exercise we're going to do before we wrap up is word association. If you had to give one word to describe NEWIEE, and you were restricted to just one word, that would be the thing that sums it all up, what would that be? I'm going to hold for our president as our last. I'm going to start with you, Vivian. What's one word that describes NEWIEE?
Vibrant is what came to mind.
Good, that's a good word. And Cindy, what would you say?
Sisterhood.
Sisterhood. And our president, what do you think, Weezie?
Community.
Community. And for those that are still watching, as we have 2 seconds left, Weezie, what is Weezie? I mean, I just want to give our viewers, because that's, I'm sure as everybody's going, Weezie, where is that? What is that name? Can you?
Oh my goodness.
5 seconds.
Oh my goodness. It's a nickname that comes from my middle name, actually. So my real name is Mary Louise. I have no respiratory problems whatsoever. It's a nickname for Louise. And so I've been called Weezie my entire life. For better or for worse, it has stuck. And at least it's memorable. So yeah, it's Weezie. And only if you're my mother and I'm in trouble is it Mary Louise.
Well, there you go. Well, I can understand that because I'm a Mary. So there's always the Mary Ann, the Mary Pat, and the Mary Louise. I just never got the cute nickname. I just became the plain Mary. Or as my father had to stop, he used to call me Mary P until one day he screamed, Mary P in the car. And I said, oh no, please don't make me that. And then he never did that again. So
one thing quickly, and I noticed in the comments, I think Karen had reached out to NEWIEE in years past about being a mentor, and we thank you for that. If it slipped through the cracks, we apologize. We can definitely use your help with a mentorship program going forward, especially given the fact that we see so many mentees coming forward. So we will make sure you are included in this next round. So thank you
for doing that, Weezie. I was going to say that we were going to, address that, but so thank you for taking care of that. So we always end our programs at 5. I have to thank my 3 panelists. I think it's been a lot of fun. Vivian called me and said, what is this? Ask me anything. How does it work? I said, it's like The View, but we're talking energy and environment stuff. It's really cool. And I just want to remind people, if you had fun tonight, you're going to have even more fun come March. And we have the Connecticut chair of Pura on. So for particularly our Connecticut people, and in New England, it's these states, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, leading the charge. So please tune in, sign up for another edition on March 10th of Ask Me Anything. Mary Usovicz, your host of Ask Me Anything. Cindy, Vivian, Weezie, couldn't have done it without the 3 of you. And I hope everybody who was watching enjoyed tonight's evening, the program.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Mary.
Bye.